Hello, welcome back here into Cadence Weather Center. Today we're paying attention here to Invest 93L as that continues to move off to the west here and is going to have a little bit of time for that chance of development that the National Hurricane Center is putting on it as it starts to head into the open waters here of the Gulf. Going to be very, very close to land, but we'll have to definitely keep an eye on, does the storm possibly get to a tropical depression phase? Maybe a tropical storm, but as of right now, a tropical depression could still be possible according to the National Hurricane Center. That's something we're going to be continuing to pay attention to over the next coming of days. It's already brought some heavy amounts of rainfall here into the Florida Peninsula, and then we're also going to be paying attention to the Louisiana coast that could bring heavy amounts of rainfall there as well. But let's head right into it right now. We can clearly see right now across the United States, Invest 93L kind of hanging out over here over the Florida Panhandle this morning. That's where that center of low pressure is. But we can see that rainfall is going to start heading into the Louisiana area pretty soon. I mean, we're expecting the next couple of hours these rainfalls bands kind of will start to head into maybe the New Orleans area and parts of even southern Mississippi, as we still have some of that flash flooding potential threat as we're continuing to watch that very closely. Then you head over here to the northern part of the United States. Tornado watches are continuing on over here in parts of Wisconsin, going into parts of even Illinois, and then we're also seeing that severe thunderstorm watch for Chicago area here, Rockford, all of that in the Illinois area. We actually do have one tornado that is extremely dangerous and is on the ground right now just northwest of Madison, but by the time this video is up, it probably will have lifted there, and even just clicking on it right now does seem like it is weakening, which is some good news. But let's just hop right into it. We can clearly see right now where is the center of low pressure for the storm. Well, the center of low pressure is sitting in this general circle right here, and we're going to continue to see this kind of move off to the west here over the next coming of hours, and as we head into maybe the next coming of days. And you can see a lot of that cloud cover continuing to now move into the Louisiana area, and you kind of could see these little bursts of thunderstorms that are currently happening as well to the west side of Invest 93L. That is eventually going to make its way into the Louisiana area, and that is what's going to cause that major possibility for rainfall threat in the Louisiana and the northern Gulf Coast area. Taking a look at the National Hurricane Center, not any big changes has happened over here the last 24 hours that we could clearly see. We could still see 40% chance of that development. Hasn't reached anything over 40% chance, and the hardest thing is that it is on land right now, and that's kind of the general region on why we haven't seen any uptick right now. And if we head into even the 2 days, you can see 40% chance here for the next 48 hours, but the reason why is because the models right here are picking up on it over here, the Florida Panhandle. That's where the exact low pressure system is, but we can see that this is going to have some time to possibly develop into a tropical depression or maybe even a storm, but this storm is going to be moving very quickly here as the high pressure to the east is pushing the storm west here at a pretty big pace. Now, once it slows, it will start to slow down a lot more when it gets into this general region. Once it makes its way into Louisiana, it will start to slow down, and that's why we're going to be seeing that flash flooding threat really start to ramp up in that, in those places there. But the biggest thing is we might be seeing some possible development in this possible area. The National Hurricane Center is not ruling out a tropical depression still, but there hasn't been too much talks on a tropical storm here. Reason why is because we're seeing that the wind speeds are just not reaching that tropical depression characteristics here. At least for the models. The GFS model is the red one here that you can see, bringing it down here in the 96-hour mark. I wouldn't pay attention to these models here because it'll already be inland by then, but we can definitely see majority of the models just keeping it down here to a tropical depression, not even forming into a tropical storm, maybe a slight tropical depression, but some of these models now picking up on no possible tropical system even forming from this. And let's take a look at the latest GFS model. This is the 12Z. We could see, little spin over Florida, obviously, for the next 18 hours. That's when you're going to start to see some of that heaviest amounts of rainfall head into the eastern part of Louisiana here and the southern part of Mississippi. That's going to continue to make its way, just really start to ramp up on some of that flooding potential, and that's going to continue here probably for 2 days. And then we're going to have that little high pressure kind of build in here, and that's going to cause a little bit of, less, rainfall and a little bit more drier conditions for parts of the east coast here of the United States. And that's the GFS model. The Euro model is saying a little bit more of a scattered showers and thunderstorms kind of going through this area, but no big thunderstorms activity going on to bring that heaviest amount of rainfall. You can see maybe here on, tomorrow we could be seeing something with the Euro, but not as aggressive as it is with the GFS, and that's something that we could pay attention to. But obviously we're still going to be seeing July 18th, maybe some more of that moisture will come up and cause some more rainfall, but once again, not as violent as the GFS model run that we've seen this morning. Taking a look here at the icon, we can obviously see a lot of rainfall still going to be continuing on according to the icon here in parts of southern Alabama, heading into Mississippi maybe later tonight here around 8 p.m. and even in the Florida Panhandle, with some of these showers still hanging out in the Florida Peninsula as that moisture is taking a little bit of time to get out of the area. Then we're going to see the icon model has been the most aggressive with this system here over the last couple of days. You can definitely see that 1,013 millibars, we might have a small tropical depression here with a closed center, at least somewhat, to have that tropical depression form by the National Hurricane Center here. But you can see a lot of heavy rainfall going to continue throughout the Louisiana area all throughout tomorrow, and then we'll possibly just hang around here for 2 days after that. So that's something to pay attention to. And then obviously we have the high pressure that kind of builds in over here according to the icon. That's kind of agreeing with the other models as well. So let's take a look at the wind shear map. Why, is it in wind shear? Not really. It's, you can see that green area. That is, very favorable environment there with less, to none shear in that northern part of the Gulf. And that's why we're still saying, once again, that once it gets into those waters, there's that possibility of something at least forming. Now, we're not expecting no hurricane or anything like that because it ain't going to have enough time for that, especially on how fast the storm is moving. But it possibly could have that possibility for a tropical depression to form. But you could see already on the satellite there's a lot of that thunderstorm activity going on, but not even the center of low pressure, even though it's on land. Once it gets into the water, it's favorable environment throughout there. Warm waters once again, and then the shear, there's just little to none shear in that general area right there. Now let's take a look at the flash flooding potential, because we know that the flash flooding potential is going to ramp up here over the next couple of days, and we're going to see that here. So taking a look at this on the bottom left of this map here, you can see on when this is valid as we head into tomorrow and then Friday. This is going to be tomorrow's flooding risk. You can see slight weather risk continues on in the Louisiana region. That's when we're starting to see some of that tropical moisture, tropical depression, whatever it is by then, really start to ramp up with the rainfall. Still continuing on in the Florida Panhandle as well. We're going to see a lot of that rainfall kind of just continue to move off to the west here for the next couple of days. And then we take a look here as we go into around this weekend time, Friday, Saturday. You can see still parts of the Florida Panhandle getting some of that rainfall, but majority of that strongest and heaviest amount of rainfall will be in the slight to moderate risk area that it does include mostly all of the Louisiana area here. We can see that does include the New Orleans area, and then you could see that moderate risk could really bring some heavy flash flooding in that general area. And obviously taking a look here at the flash flooding potential and what kind of the maps are looking at, well, we're going to zoom in really quickly here and see that obviously if you look on this side of the screen here, this is by the Weather Prediction Center, we can clearly see in this general area right down here, we are possibly going to be seeing some of that heavier totals just on the coast here of Louisiana. So that could bring in, maybe 5 to maybe even some areas getting maybe even up to 10 inches of rain in some of these coastal areas here of Louisiana. So that's something to pay attention to. Now that doesn't mean, these blue areas and these other purple. Now in this purple area, you can obviously see, even if you're in that purple or in the blue area, 2 inches of rain could still be expected, and that can obviously be localized heavier rains at possible times, but also, that's just going to lead up to some possible flash flooding as well. Even though you might not be getting the most of rain, you could still possibly get some of that flash flooding. So make sure, if you're driving, make sure turn around, don't drown, follow your local National Weather Service on that. Taking a look here at the Global Tropics Hazard Outlook, we take a look at this all throughout hurricane season to kind of get a prediction on what we could be possibly looking down farther down the road here. We can clearly see over here from the week of July 23rd all the way through the 29th, nothing is going to be expected here. We'll see if that changes, but really the Eastern Pacific might start getting back up here as we head into maybe early August. The Eastern Pacific might be starting to ramp up just a little bit with that tropical development. Now the big question obviously is when will the Atlantic start to wake up? Well, we're gonna have to see when that happens, but you can see currently at this from this map, we are probably getting pretty close. So I mean, we're about the middle here of July, so we're having a little bit of that uptick, but we are very, very, there's no storms exactly happening right now, but obviously we know we're gonna start climbing this hill here pretty soon, around August 1st here. That's when we'll have a little bit of a big, hit up in the air, and then really throughout the middle of August and September 10th will be that peak of the hurricane season. That is when we are going to possibly start to get some pretty active systems here, as we still have a little bit more to go throughout this hurricane season. So make sure that you are staying tuned to your local National Weather Service as well as the National Hurricane Center throughout all of hurricane season here. But make sure if you're under a severe weather threat, as that what we're paying attention to today for Wisconsin and Illinois, make sure you're paying attention to your local National Weather Service as well. And then please make sure you're paying attention to if flash flood warnings if you are dealing with heavy amounts of rainfall. I thank you guys so much for watching here. Make sure to follow my X page down in the description to stay tuned with any weather information that is coming out anytime during the day. Hope you guys all have a great rest of your day. Stay safe, and bye-bye.